everyone. So today we have a special guest, Fatima Zehra, who is basically, working in the architecture space. So we would be getting to know about her journey, the starting of earlier life, and also what she's doing as part of the company and, the company she has founded. So welcome to the show, Fatima.
Thank you so much. Good to be
Uh,
here.
Thank you for joining on such a short notice. So I think मैं ये सोच रहा था कि maybe we can start with the earlier life kind of question. So where did you grow up? What kind of education that you get? And stuff like that. So I think we can transition into more deeper stuff from that.
Yeah, that sounds good. A little existential, but sure. I was born in Lahore. I've lived most of my life here, and I went to actually multiple schools growing up. So I have a very diverse background of schools, not one particular education system that I would say has made me whoever I am today. And through that journey, just, growing up in Pakistan, you always think of becoming either a doctor or an engineer, or, there's just hardly anything else that parents focus on. So as a child, I always wanted to be a doctor as well, until I realized in 9th, 10th grade that it wasn't my thing, और मुझसे somehow इस तरह से पढ़ा नहीं जाता था, और चीजें याद करना जो क्योंकि हमारा ज्यादातर सिस्टम इस तरह से आपने क्रैम करनी है चीजें और रटनी है, याद करनी है, और जाके एक स्पेसिफिक टेम्पलेट के ऊपर वो करना है,
Hmm.
क्या कहते हैं अपने एग्जाम सॉल्व करने हैं. So
सही
that's
बात है.
something I never really aligned with. मुझसे I was good at conceptualizing things, और मुझे ideologies और concepts ज्यादा अच्छे लगते थे, पर चीजें याद कर करके वो replicate करना was not my thing. So that uh, uh, I would say realization made me think about what I wanted to do with my life. So मैंने उस वक्त फिर डॉक्टर बनने का आइडिया चेंज कर दिया, and I decided to become an engineer. But then that was not something I was very interested in either. Or so through some discussions with my family, I've lived with my whole extended family, my mom's side of the family, and most of them are actually doctors and engineers. And through one of those discussions, one of my cousins made me realize that how much I love buildings and the environment, and there's this profession that caters to this specifically. मुझे उस time पे पता भी नहीं था. I was just graduated from 10th grade, और अभी मैं figure out कर रही थी क्या करना है. So that's when I got to know that architecture is the profession where you get to build buildings and you get to decide क्या होगा कैसे होगा. And मुझे हमेशा से हमारा landscape काफी bother करता रहा है, इतना organized नहीं है, especially when we were growing up. Lahore wasn't this organized or clean or well maintained. So that really sparked my interest, and that's when I enrolled in an architecture school and started that journey of understanding what it was. और बड़ा एक different सा प्रोफेशन था, थोड़ा सा फैमिली का बैकलैश भी शुरू में आया कि आर्ट स्कूल में जा रहे हैं, माहौल एनवायरमेंट करियर आगे क्या होगा, चीजें किस तरह से होंगी. एज अ वुमन आई थिंक इट वाज आल्सो चैलेंजिंग इन द 90s, 2000s कहेंगे कि we don't really think of professions that are very out of the box. कि क्या होगा, काम कैसे करेंगी, फील्ड में जाना होगा, इस तरह के सारे कंसर्न्स आते थे. पर उस वक्त पढ़ने के अंदर चीजें करते करते somehow हमारा यूनिवर्सिटी का एनवायरनमेंट भी बहुत अच्छा था. एक ग्रेजुएटेड फ्रॉम पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी ओल्ड कैंपस से, फाइन आर्ट डिपार्टमेंट एज इट इज नोन. तो वहां पे फिर हमारे teachers, they were very understanding about all of these issues because of course they had gone through it before, or they educated my mom about it as well. You have to let her be a part of the system, you have to let her go out, experience things, and that's how we started going out. उस point पे ही sites पे जाना शुरू किया हमने. कोई भी project करना होता था तो हम उसके लिए case study करते थे. तो case study के लिए कभी किसी के घर जा रहे हैं, कभी hospitals जा रहे हैं, cafes, restaurants, और different टाइप्स की रिसर्चर्स के लिए डिफरेंट यूनिवर्सिटीज जाते थे, टीचर्स के पास और प्रोफेशनल्स के पास जाते थे. So that was quite expansive, I would say, in terms of experience in education.
Makes absolute sense, and I think this is a fascinating journey. So coming to the problems that you faced as a woman, पाकिस्तान में typically तरह ये शुमार होता है कि ये जो education है थोड़ी सी basically field oriented है और इसमें ज़रा इस तरह के problems आते हैं. So did you face any kind of problems while studying and also as part of pursuit of that career?
Not during our education time. As I said, कि university में our teachers were so aware of this idea कि equality somehow luckily वहाँ पे ज़्यादा मैंने देखी कि वो encourage भी करते थे. I remember हमने trips पे जाना होता था तो मेरे head of department जो उस time पे थे उन्होंने my mom was not giving me the permission to go. It was a study tour in a way कि हम different cities में जाते थे वहाँ का architecture भी पढ़ते थे historical and then we'd stay for a few days also. So she was not very willing about it. So then he educated her, I would say, in a way. Okay, you have to let her experience these things. How else will she learn to, fight for herself or to stand up for herself? So that I found was very inspiring and interesting. Then my family itself started supporting more. तो ज्यादा मुझे प्रॉब्लम मैंने फेस की ग्रेजुएट होने के बाद काम करने के अंदर where I would see especially when I started working on my own that I would see कि how people would treat me as a woman. They would think कि अच्छा colors decide करने हैं, कोई इंटीरियर की कोई चीजें देखनी है तो लड़की से बात कर लेते हैं. आगे कंस्ट्रक्शन है या एग्जीक्यूशन है या कोई टेक्निकल चीज है तो वो अगर because I used to work with my partner as well. I had a partner before this company. I had another company. So they would look at him just like the way people would turn if there's another person or if it's a man in the room. That's something I faced. I wouldn't say it's very harsh, but that's something I've just noticed that happened before. They would always assume that a man was more.
Yeah, I think.
And I
I
think I've surprised them and myself in that. But
बिल्कुल I was basically referring to the same point because I did my own house as well. तो उसमें ये है कि
mm,
typically laborers के साथ काम करना है या किसी भी तरह करना है तो they typically have a set mindset. और फिर उसमें अगर there is a woman lens, woman उनको dictate कर रही है तो I think there might be issues. So I can totally foresee that happening.
funnily, not for the labor though. Like labor, I feel has been
अच्छा.
very nice. Hanji, I think by the time I had some experience 5 years into work. I think हमारी labor भी काफी educate हो गई थी क्योंकि even while I was studying, there were like half the students in my class were girls. तो और वो exponentially increase करता गया. You see लाहौर के अंदर या पाकिस्तान में overall लड़कियों की education और जो है graduation ज्यादा increase करती जा रही है. So market profession में भी field में भी ज्यादा लड़कियां आ जाती हैं. Or since overall environment change हो गया तो more women are working also. So I've noticed that labor have been very nice and very respectable and they are much more aware also. I feel like internet का भी impact है तो वो उस लिहाज से कभी मुझे labor से कभी problem नहीं face हुई कभी disrespect या कोई question of concern वो
अच्छा.
उनका general है वो gender oriented नहीं है बट अगर कोई stupid question होगा वो किसी के लिए भी होगा. It's not कि वो they would specifically be demeaning to me.
So you work with a team, you have a team जो जिसके set number of laborers हैं जिनके साथ आप काम करती हैं या you basically outsource that as well?
Hanji, when I started working on my own after I quit my job, I started working with a friend of mine who's one of my best friends. So we started a company and we started like design से शुरू किया था, but then we got into executions as well. And I would handle quite a lot of work because I loved, like, I mean, I love executing the work as well. The things that I design, so like execute, जिस बंदे ने किया होता है, जिस design है वो ज़्यादा बेहतर तरीके से लेके जा सकता है. So
सही
I've
बात.
had quite an experience with that. Or हमने फिर over time you work with different people and then you start making your team. Some people stay, some people you know that you're never going to work with again. So with time, I would say you know there's a set of people that I would want on my team or any project.
सही है. So typically we say कि जो architecture होता है वो follow कर रहा होता है ethos of the society or values of the society. So are there any particular values that you take as part of the the organization itself? कि इस तरह के हम projects करेंगे या this would be a preferred theme that we would be taking away.
I think on a global scale, it's a very nice way to believe that we have a philosophy. Don't think कि पाकिस्तान में ऐसा कुछ कोई philosophy है design की. We are generally inspired by different
उर्दू के बारे
ideas
में
around the world.
नहीं जैसे उर्दू के
उर्दू
बारे में हम
के
कहते हैं कि हमारी लश्करी जबान है so काफी जगह से
Hmm.
assimilation मिली हुई है हमें.
True,
I think
true, true.
architecture has the same thing. It has influence
Architecture
from the
हमारा
Middle East and other areas as well.
जो इस वक्त
Subcontinent.
हमारा करंट जो आर्किटेक्चर स्टाइल्स चल रहे हैं आई वुड से कि वो काफी ज्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस्ड है मिडिल ईस्टर्न फिलोसफी से साउथ इंडियन फिलोसफी से ग्रैंडियोसिटी से काफी ज्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस्ड है. मिनिमलिज्म थोड़ा अभी तक आई वुड से कि इतना मैसिव स्केल के ऊपर वो ट्रेंड आया नहीं है. वी स्टिल लाइक क्वाइट अ लॉट ऑफ मटेरियल इन आवर प्लेसेस. खाली जगहें इतनी प्रिफर नहीं करते लोग. So, but personally, in my work, I try and translate whatever a client wants in the best way possible. I would say it's my responsibility as an architect to understand कि client को चाहिए क्या है. And then with my professional education and experience, I have to translate in it in the right manner with the right rules and regulations. Architecture could be, I would say, काफी specific rules or laws हैं. So translating that ideology, एक तो सबसे पहले आपने समझना है कि client को चाहिए क्या है, और फिर उसको एक इतनी खूबसूरती से ट्रांसलेट करना है कि वो क्लाइंट को भी खुशी हो कि they feel like that what we wanted has actually materialized, and you know, being a professional should also do the right job and do justice by the regulations of design.
Makes absolute sense, yeah, I think. So उसमें जो हम ये कहते हैं कि connection होता है typically the kind of area that you're designing. यानी अगर आप किसी भी किस्म के, like you were saying, there is a grandeur of things जो यहाँ पे prefer की जाती है. So from that lens, do you see कि human emotion का उसके ऊपर effect पड़ता है? मतलब अगर कोई हम ऐसा design कर रहे हैं which is basically behemoth in nature, or you know the color tones and the color palettes that we have. तो उसमें, like for example, my background is black, so typically people say कि तुम्हें black पसंद है तो you are a gloomy person, या जिसको कहते हैं a gorish feel. So do you think कि in palettes का ह्यूमन इमोशंस पे, क्योंकि डे टू डे आप उसी रूम में रह रहे हैं और उसी एनवायरनमेंट में रह रहे हैं या हाउस में रह रहे हैं, सो डू यू थिंक दे इट हैज द इफेक्ट ऑन द पर्सन?
100%. I think everything, physical or non-physical, has an impact on human beings. And architecture, being one of the biggest contributor to our senses, I would say, has quite a lot of impact. The kind of space you live in or spend a lot of time in matters. हर चीज की एक जो कहते हैं तासीर होती है. तो हर कलर की, हर मटेरियल की, हर टेक्सचर का एक इफेक्ट है जो आपके डिफरेंट सेंसेस के ऊपर प्ले करता है. इट्स नॉट जस्ट कि यू फील हैप्पी और सैड, इट माइट मेक यू फील relaxed, it might make you feel refreshed. It can change an environment completely. अगर आप कुछ नया लाइफ में चाह रहे हैं, तो जैसे लोग अक्सर हेयर कट करवाते हैं, तो renovating the space around you is one of the biggest way to declutter your mind. अगर आप stressed हैं, अपने आसपास की space को clean up करें, minimalize करते हैं. If you're bored, add more textures, colors, layers into it. And the kind of spaces, कितनी square है, rectangle shapes का, हर चीज का effect होता है. When I was in university, so we had to do a final year thesis, which is a 1 year project. So in that project, I actually took emotions as a way of understanding how that works. And at that time, I was somehow experiencing people going through depression, and I worked on understanding how spaces can create an impact on people to reduce the numbers of depression, in a way, like reduce the number of people who get affected by depression. So मैंने लाहौर के लिए एक prototype project develop किया था, case study, जिसके अंदर I did extensive research, and I realized how much of an impact it has, the kind of spaces we go to, then the kind of activities it has, the kind of audio visuals we have. हमें आवाज भी किस चीज की कैसे आती है, अगर आप एक टेबल भी खींचे और उसकी चीं करके आवाज आएगी, एक स्मूथ वुडन आवाज आएगी, उस हर चीज का एक इम्पैक्ट है जो हमें शायद बहुत कॉन्शियसली फील नहीं होता, पर सबकॉन्शियस लेवल पे इट्स देयर.
सही बात, makes absolute sense. तो आपने कोई सिर्फ रेजिडेंशियल प्रोजेक्ट्स करती हैं, या डू यू आल्सो डू सम कमर्शियल प्रोजेक्ट्स, या जो हेल्थ केयर साइड पे भी होते हैं? बिकॉज इन द हेल्थ केयर स्पेसेस देयर माइट बी अ स्पेशल नीड के स्पेस जो वो इस तरह डिजाइन हो. For example,
Healthcare, I haven't had a chance to work on that. We once were
typically
going to work on a
it's
friend's
working with the government,
hospital.
so IDAP and others government entities are working in that case.
Hanji. I think private hospitals don't do only in those places are you. I think architects work in that for that. The bigger companies would get involved. Smaller spaces can there, clinics can there, or aesthetic clinics or dental or other types of clinics that हमने एक दफा एक hospital renovate करने का plan किया था, but then again, economical conditions makes it difficult to carry out such big projects. So we couldn't continue it. We did some parts of that. But I've done corporate and retail and hospitality projects. I've done restaurants and hotels. Fancy stuff only so far, I would say.
सही है. I think restaurant is also a good example. I think वहाँ पे जो ambience है, the creation of that particular ambience, just to have the welcoming effect. उसमें I think
Experiential spaces create करना, I feel, is important.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. So इसमें जो अगर हम design philosophies की बात करें, so do you have any example जो अभी recently आपने की हो, जहाँ पे कि for example sustainability का lens हो, and there is a preference for sustainability, particular kind of a design philosophy that you were following?
I would say that we follow anything related to sustainability. At least in my line of work, I've tried working with natural materials. That's as far as I've been able to come close to sustainability. But again, as I say, it's a very commercialized profession. Our society is not very concerned with the kind of materials we use or the impact it has on the society. That's not a thought process. And with the recent economical changes, the costs have gone so high and sustainability is very expensive. अच्छे materials अब तो आप natural materials use करना difficult हो गया because the prices are very high. So most of the work we do is with actually artificial materials. Even luckily solid wood is not used anymore. Bricks हम सब use करते हैं पर उसका भी इतना maximum use नहीं है क्योंकि उसको again we cover it up and then we add layers and layers of more synthetic materials. So in my, at least the work that I've seen or done so far, I don't think is sustainability. Innovation, definitely.
Yeah, I think
Not
innovation is
sustainability.
something makes sense. Yeah, I think you are absolutely right. I think a thoda consumer centric market hai, and whatever the client is requesting, I think you need to follow that. If in a house where facade is very simple, there is basically Ban Jayega. I was following their page, Facebook page. They share some similar projects. So I was looking for any interesting example that you can share on that standpoint.
I actually, I don't do elevations, at least not for right now. I
Acha.
mostly work on interiors for the past few years. So
Acha,
I
so you
think
don't do the gray structures, you only do the finishing wala piece.
Yeah, right now so far because as I said, but I had a company before, which with my friend, and we were doing both architecture and interiors. Then I moved more into interiors because I've been working more in that, and then last year I established my company separately, which is more focused on interiors right now, and that's generally the kind of work I get. And so far I've done a complete building structure, or if I do, I get like either get someone involved or it's just like a part of a bigger project.
Subset of a project. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So typically people come with you were basically saying people come with a budget or a theme. So how do you basically, what's the typical process like? So if somebody comes to you, this is a design that I'm looking for, do you go with the cheaper options? For example, somebody has lesser budget. So what's the process that you follow?
Yeah, I really believe in being able to create something beautiful without a lot of money. I think it's not one. It is of course dependent because a lot of things still require um, some addition of material into a space to be able to create without adding anything at all. It becomes a little more challenging. So I try not to worry too much about the budget, but it's still a very important factor, and we try to use alternate materials, alternate fixtures, and alternate easier types of additions into a space. If the kind of tiles that we're choosing, the kind of wall decor that we're adding, or the kind of wall enhancements or accents that I'm using, I'll try and use the kind of materials that I know will not cost a lot, and then try playing with that to create something which is even nicer, but yet
So I was talking about, typically it imbibes the cultural identities when we talk about the architecture. So do you incorporate cultural elements? For example, if somebody comes to you that I need to design this space into something which is basically more resonating to my Punjabi aspect or Sindhi aspect or whatever. So do you incorporate those elements? And if so, how and what are the examples that you can share?
again, I would say it's that most people are somehow not very interested in experimenting with our own culture or traditions that we have. Most of us want to just change into this ideology of modernism that is going around, where everything is in a very small bracket of what modernism is and how the place we want to move to, leave behind our culture and uh, अपने ट्रेडिशंस हो, जो हमारा अपना लोकल आर्किटेक्चर है, अपने लोकल मटेरियल्स हैं, उनको हम इतना आई डोंट नो पसंद नहीं करते, या हम शायद एक चेंज जब चाह रहे होते हैं, एक अपने कह लो जिस बैकग्राउंड से हम आ रहे हैं उससे शिफ्ट करना चाहते हैं, तो वी वांट टू मूव टुवर्ड्स अनदर काइंड ऑफ डिजाइन. सो मोस्टली इस तरह से प्रोजेक्ट्स होते हैं. मैंने कुछ प्रोजेक्ट्स किए. आई डिजाइंड अ रेस्टोरेंट फॉर अ फ्रेंड. वी हैव नॉट बीन एबल टू एग्जीक्यूट इट येट, पर उसके अंदर आई यूज चारपाइयाँ, मैंने वो मेटल के जो हमारे हॉस्पिटल बेड्स एक पुराने टाइम पे हुआ करते थे वो यूज किए. उसके अंदर वो जो भूसा कहते हैं उसको, स्ट्रॉ दैट वी कॉल्ड, उसकी छतें बना के एक आउटडोर स्पेस क्रिएट की थी बहुत ज्यादा ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल्स के साथ, घास के साथ और बजरी के साथ और प्लांट्स के साथ ज्यादा स्पेस क्रिएट करके, और फर्नीचर भी जो भी है वो भी उसको एक ट्रेडिशनल मेटल का फर्नीचर को और उसको यूज करके स्पेस क्रिएट की। और उसके अलावा भी रिसेंटली आई वाज डूइंग दिस प्रोजेक्ट इन कसूर, द मेकिंग कसूर का चैम्बर ऑफ कॉमर्स बन रहा है, सो देयर सम डेवलपमेंट गोइंग ऑन देयर विद सम ऑफ माय क्लाइंट्स आर वर्किंग ऑन इट। सो फॉर दैट वी वांटेड टू क्रिएट एन एग्जीबिशन स्पेस जहाँ पे लोग अपने प्रोजेक्ट्स, जो कसूर के प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं वो डिस्प्ले कर सकें। सो उसके लिए फिर आई ट्राइड मिक्सिंग के, वहाँ के लेदर बड़ा फेमस है और क्या कहते हैं जूते बनते हैं वहाँ पे, मेथी, खाने पीने की चीजें, डिफरेंट डिफरेंट टाइप की
रीजनल
चीजें।
एलिमेंट।
सो विद दैट, हाँ जी, सो विद दैट आई ट्राइड यूजिंग इट इन अ वे कि वो एक मॉडर्न और क्लास जो हमारा लोकल उसका मिक्स आ जाए। सो आई यूज चारपाई एज अ सेंटर टेबल और झूला लगा के और इस तरह के फर्नीचर वगैरह सारी चीजें ऐड करके, एंड देन ऑल्सो विद अ मिक्स ऑफ minimalism, so plain walls with leather samples hanging on it. So I like working like that. I like working with so one of my favorite type of architecture is actually neoclassical, which is mixing classical with modern designs.
Makes sense. Neoclassical, you said?
हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
Awesome. So हम ये अभी what we are seeing in the market, there is a plummet in terms of the the number of houses that are being built. Do you see कि ऐसा हो रहा है, या is it just a perception?
It's for me, honestly, I would say it's hard to say. Market,
Mhm.
a lot of things that we hear are just things that people that we know or know of. So we can't really say that. I haven't read any statistics about it to really say if it's going up or down exactly. But I see a lot of buildings just starting off. A lot are bit construction. काफी ज़्यादा I went to Karachi in Islamabad lately and I saw कि काफी ज़्यादा development हो रही है, लाहौर में भी काफी ज़्यादा हो रही है, multi-story buildings भी बन रही हैं, घर भी बन रहे हैं. So I would say it seems pretty good.
सही है. And do you see a transition towards vertical versus horizontal की जो debate है उसमें, do you see more of the vertical is coming to Lahore or other areas?
I think लाहौर थोड़ा सा पीछे था इस लिहाज से vertical buildings के.
Hmm.
वी हैव कराची में और इस्लामाबाद में हमेशा से वर्टिकल बिल्डिंग्स का ट्रेंड रहा है, और वहाँ पे वो जो है अपार्टमेंट्स और मल्टी स्टोरी बिल्डिंग्स काफी कॉमन रही हैं सिंस आई थिंक आई वाज अ चाइल्ड। आई हैव सीन मल्टी स्टोरी बिल्डिंग्स इन कराची।
Yeah.
इस्लामाबाद केम लेटर और अब लाहौर में भी आई थिंक स्पेस शॉर्टेज की वजह से काफी ज्यादा लॉट ऑफ पीपल एंड फैमिलीज हैव स्टार्टेड लिविंग सेपरेटली, सो उसकी वजह से भी पीपल आर नाउ मूविंग टुवर्ड्स relatively cheaper, safer options, and multi-story buildings play I think a big role in that.
Mhm. I think it has the climate element as well. Typically, Karachi
Hmm.
में we have seen that, in Islamabad में. But in Lahore, it wasn't preferred. Maybe due to the climate, also due to the the structures that people prefer in Lahore versus other cities. So I think that could be the
लाहौर,
reason as well.
हाँ जी, लाहौर हमारा एक किले के जो लोकल ट्रेडिशनल जिसकी हम बात करते हैं, तो लाहौर लाहौरीज और जो लाहौर के आसपास पंजाब इटसेल्फ इज अ वेरी देसी ओपन एयर, खुली स्पेस, खुली जगह का कल्चर है। हमें बाहर निकलना, घर से फौरन बाहर निकलना अच्छा लगता है, सहन अच्छा लगता है। एक बरांडा का कॉन्सेप्ट होता था पहले घरों के अंदर, जब बड़े बड़े घर और पुरानी स्पेसेस में बना करते थे। तो जब से अब ये कम ज़ाहिर है वो इन्फ्लेशन की वजह से चीजें छोटी 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 होती जा रही हैं, तो वो जब इस पॉइंट पे आ गई हैं कि वो बहुत ही छोटी हो गई हैं, तो आई थिंक पीपल लाइक ओके विद मल्टी स्टोरी नाउ एज वेल। एंड ऑब्वियसली जनरेशनल चेंज आता है, थोड़ा थोड़ा आपका इन्फ्लुएंस आता है चीजों का।
Yeah, absolutely. सही बात है. In terms of the innovations, एक तो ये हमने innovation की बात की है, which is vertical versus it's a trend that is being changed. I'm not sure कि कितना हद तक वो penetration है उसकी. But do you see any other innovations या trends उसके जो लोग उसकी तरफ जा रहे हैं, which wasn't the case historically?
I would say minimalism is finding its place slowly in the market, in people's lives as well. People, consumerism का थोड़ा सा concept reduce होता जा रहा है. People are trying to also understanding with, I think with newer generations
Is
coming up, and they have become a sorry.
is it subsiding? जो you were saying कि minimalism का concept आ रहा है, grandiosity of things is basically subsiding. I don't see that, by the way.
I
But
won't say it's
might.
subsiding. I'm saying I would say कि अभी for some time it is here to stay, but minimalism is finding its space. It's trying to get into it. As I say, कि with newer generations, people are understanding the idea of having less material in life. Again, I say कुछ जो आपका mind clutter करती है space, जो with would say that we all aware of how much social media has propagated and talked about mental health, mental space, the kind of space that you're living around. So that has given a lot of us quite a lot of अंडरस्टैंडिंग अबाउट कि हमें अपने किस एनवायरनमेंट में रहना है, हमें अपनी हमने क्या खाना है, किस तरह की स्पेस चाहिए, आसपास किस तरह की चीजें चाहिए, तो वो उससे एक सर्टेन लेवल की अवेयरनेस आपको आ जाती है ये समझने के लिए कि हमें अपने आसपास इतनी डिकोर की, इतनी ज्यादा चीजों की, एक्सेसिबिलिटी की, एक्सेसेस की जरूरत नहीं है. Minimal stuff is also it's very good and looks beautiful and it has a very nice pleasing impact on the mind as well.
सही बात है. And I think people are going towards monochromes या इस तरह की, but it doesn't necessarily mean कि it would be lesser costly. Do you agree with that?
That's just friends. I think वो एक certain again friends चलते
मैं
हैं,
इसलिए कह रहा हूँ कि कभी
repeat
कभार
होते रहते हैं.
आप मिनिमल चीज भी बना रहे होते हैं तो it takes a lot of effort to attain that, achieve that. तो उस केस में do you see कि
Def
बजट जो है वो plummet होते हैं उस केस में, या it's in my opinion it doesn't. It might be more costly to attain a minimalistic tone.
I wouldn't say if it would be costly or cheaper. It depends on how much space you have, how much you want to indulge into it. And monochrome is just a choice of between two colors. It's still again two colors, and how you use that color depends again. जैसे मैं पहले बात करी थी कि आपने materials decide करते पड़ते हैं कि आपको कितने quantity के materials चाहिए. Maybe I can use very expensive black marble and a white marble, which is
Yeah,
much more
that's what I
expensive
was.
than probably any other synthetic marble or granite I might use. So it's not necessarily that. It's just कि वो ट्रेंड्स दो चीजों से होते हैं, या तो जो भी सोशल मीडिया पे जो आपको सबसे ज्यादा नजर आ रहा हो, या एक मुल्क में चल रहा हो, या जो फैशन कैसे आप कह सकते हैं आर्किटेक्चर मैगजीन्स में आ रहे हो, या जो आप कह लें कि एक सोसाइटी के अंदर लोग ज्यादा यूज करना शुरू करें, तो दैट वुड बी इन ट्रेंड. पर वो वेरी करता है. आई थिंक मोस्ट पीपल वांट टू डू समथिंग डिफरेंट. सम पीपल वांट टू डू व्हाट दे ऑलरेडी सी एंड नो. सो इट्स मोर ऑफ अ पर्सनालिटी टाइप rather than I would say a trend. Yeah, that's what I actually try and tell my clients as well. Don't go after what you think is nice or what is a big thing in the world right now. You look at what you want, and that's my job to make it as beautiful and as trendy for you. It's not the other way around.
Absolutely. So I think it's a related question. Typically, people generally have a sense for aesthetics, but when it comes to functionality, they might not have the mind of an architect. So उस lens से, do you see any kind of challenge कि कोई debate हुई हो किसी client के साथ where they were preferring aesthetics over functionality, but in my opinion, it's typically functionality over aesthetics.
Actually, दोनों तरह की debates होती हैं clients से. Sometimes it's more about aesthetic, sometimes it's more about functionality. It depends kind of space किस तरह की है. Commercial areas के अंदर functionality space की ज़्यादा matter करती है. But I believe कि दोनों चीजें equally important हैं, and difficult होता है मेरे लिए personally compromise करना on aesthetics for something to be practical. तो कभी कभी spatial problems आ जाते हैं, कभी cost के problems आ जाते हैं, कभी choices के problems आ जाते हैं. Sometimes you and your client are not on the same page. तो ये सारी चीजें आती हैं. उसको handle करने के लिए यही है कि आप we have to have repeated discussions, understanding baat par baat to and fro hoti hai. Sometimes you understand, sometimes even I'm not saying कि कभी architect गलत नहीं हो सकता, but there are times when you sometimes overlook something and the client might be seeing it from a different angle, तो वो आपको educate करते हैं. And sometimes you tell them कि ये चीज इस तरह से ज्यादा बेहतर है. And as a professional, in my experience, people generally go with the understanding of a profession. That's why they have hired them. तो जरूरी भी यही है और बेहतर भी यही है कि वो इस चीज को realize करें तो उनको बेहतर understanding होगी अपने काम.
सही बात है. अच्छा, इसमें जो इनोवेशन के अंदर challenges आते हैं, for example, you came up with an idea, but in terms of the space that you have available, उसमें कोई limitation आ गई. Like you were saying, there is a budget constraint. Budget, I think probably we can subside that. But any other challenge that you might have seen, maybe from the space lens, या उसको आपने किस तरह maneuver किया? Any example of that? Any idea that you would like to share?
आई वुड से कि हर प्रोजेक्ट में इस तरह से प्रॉब्लम आते हैं कि जब आप एक आइडिया आइडियोलॉजी डिस्कस करते हैं ना, तो आपके माइंड में एक कॉन्सेप्ट बनना शुरू हो जाता है ऑफ हाउ यू वांट द स्पेस टू बी वन, एंड देन व्हेन यू स्टार्ट वर्किंग ऑन इट एक कॉन्सेप्ट तो डेवलप हो जाता है. फिर जब टेक्निकल साइड पे जाते हैं तो टेक्निकलिटीज के अंदर कोई चीज कहीं आपको शायद लंबी चाहिए, वहां पे हाइट उतनी नहीं है, कहीं पे स्ट्रक्चरल प्रॉब्लम्स आ जाते हैं, स्पेस उतनी बड़ी नहीं है, आपका जो है सर्कुलेशन इतनी अच्छी नहीं चल रही, तो क्योंकि बड़ी दफा आपको चीजें रिपीट करनी पड़ती हैं, चेंज करनी पड़ती हैं. समटाइम्स आपको अपना आइडिया कंप्लीटली गिव अप करके दोबारा से शुरू करने पड़ते हैं. I did a project last year, which was a salon in Lahore, and उसके लिए it was a 4 marla plaza, which is not a very big space to be able to move around and do much. Sorry, I think an 8 marla plaza. तो उसका हमारा जो कमर्शियल लेआउट है, एक पूरा कॉरिडोर आपका लेफ्ट और सीढ़ी के लिए निकल जाता है, और उसके लिए स्पेस एंटर करने के लिए तो हमारे पास मल्टीपल फ्लोर्स थे और हमने हर फ्लोर पे डिफरेंट डिफरेंट चीजें करनी थी. And I wanted to do a very organic, natural, cave-like kind of an environment for the space and earthy tones के अंदर बहुत बिल्कुल इसी तरह से जैसे आप एक mountain की cocoon के अंदर आ गई. So that was very challenging to be able to find to make a circular plan in a rectangular box, which is very restricted कि आपकी entrance यहाँ से exits यहाँ से आपने circulation भी देनी है, space भी आपकी ज़ाया नहीं हो सकती. और क्या कहते हैं कर्व्स में काम करना थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है क्योंकि आपको वेस्टेज स्पेस की काफी पॉसिबिलिटी बन जाती है रेक्टेंगल्स के अंदर स्क्वायर्स में इट्स लाइक वेरी इजी कि आपका हर कॉर्नर पूरा पूरा निकल आता है और स्पेस ओवरऑल कवर्ड स्पेस जो है वो आपको ज्यादा फील होती है सो दैट वाज क्वाइट चैलेंजिंग दैट टुक मी अ व्हाइल टू बी एबल टू फाइंड जस्ट द राइट प्लान और वो कितनी दफा उसको रिवाइज कर eventually I came up with something which I was very happy with it actually did look like being in a cave and had this very smooth effect but कोई spatial loss नहीं हुआ.
Awesome. Great example. I think we are close to the time. So any advice that you would like to give to aspiring architects, yeah, from the education standpoint, कि कहाँ से education लें, if you need to start, as becoming an architect in the future, what should you do? What are the, the basic elements that they need to follow? Any advice that you would like to give to the audience?
I would always say that go to a school which is more focused on arts and the experimental side of work, which teaches you to not be scared of who you are and what you might become, which seems like a big thing to say as a designer, but in a society which really scares you to be open up, to experiment, to try, and to do anything, it's very important to find an educational space which encourages you to explore yourself completely. क्योंकि जो मेंटल ब्लॉक्स हैं और जो आपकी लैक ऑफ क्रिएटिविटी है वो भी इन अ वे एक्चुअली इट्स जस्ट फियर ऑफ व्हाट माइट बी एंड हमें वो एनवायरनमेंट अपने स्कूल सिस्टम्स में भी इतना अच्छा नहीं मिलता जहाँ पे आपके अंदर से वो चीज निकाली जाए आपके अंदर का आर्टिस्ट जो है या आपके अंदर का राइटर क्रिएटर कोई भी जो हमारा टैलेंट है वो उस तरह से सही से निकल के नहीं आता सो इवन आफ्टर पढ़ने एजुकेशन के बाद भी इफ यू वर्किंग समवेयर ट्राई वर्किंग इन अ स्पेस वेयर यू फाइंड अ मेंटोर समवन हु वुड बी विलिंग टू sculpt you and teach you the right things and learn all the technical चीजें भी but creativity की side की चीजें भी. That's all very important for any
Awesome.
field of work, I would say, not just
Yeah, I think
architecture.
absolutely. I think it's a very good advice. So I think it's a pleasure to have you. I think we are on the 1 hour mark. So thank you so much for joining. I think
Okay.
it was a great session from the perspective of insights that you shared. So once again, thank you again.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you as well.